Hey y'all, it's Brady. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you my homemade from scratch Salisbury steak. So to get started, this is everything that you're going to need. You are going to need, you can also see that I have got my pinto beans already cooking. That's just a can of pinto beans with some fat back. And then you're going to see all of the ingredients that you're going to need for this meal. So you're going to start down here with the ground beef. That's 1 pound to 1.5 pounds, whatever your preference. I think this is right at 1.5 pounds. You can use 80-20, you can use 90-10, whatever works best for you. And then I'll try to link it below in the description box, or in an iCard, my grocery haul where I packaged that up. I've also got a tablespoon of real butter, a tablespoon of minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, that I've just measured out here in the bowl. And then over here I've got 1 medium onion. I've already just cut in half and sliced. 1 egg, 1/2 cup of saltine crackers that I've just minced or crushed down into crumbs. You could also use breadcrumbs, just need about 1/2 cup. Salt, garlic powder, black pepper, an egg again, the parsley, brown gravy, a can of beef broth. This is a 14.5 ounce can. And then also a can of cream of mushroom soup. This is just the 10 ounce, the regular small can. You need an oversized skillet or the largest one that you have. It just makes it easier. If you need to fry in batches, you can do that too. I'm just going to show you here that I'm going to go ahead and preheat my pan to medium high. I've also got a disposable 9x13 pan. If you want to just use a regular 9x13, that's totally fine. If you're going to use the disposable pan like I am, it's helpful to put it on one of those baking sheets like that just to give you the stability. And then while that is heating up, I'm going to add my butter. And you can see here this little piece did not want to come out, so I'm going to pick it up and put it in there myself. So there you go. That's all the butter. We're going to let that melt and go start our other mixture. Okay, so while it's melting, I'm also going to throw in the onions and let those cook down. Oh, there was a little guy that didn't want to go in the first time. All right, so I'm just going to break these up into their individual slices. You can see here that all I did with that medium onion was I peeled it and I cut it in half and then flipped them over, sliced it, and threw them in the pan. That was it. So I'm just going to chop these up out of their, because they're just kind of all stuck together. So we'll let those separate and cook down until they're translucent. They'll also kind of caramelize a little bit, and you want to leave all those good bits and caramelized pieces in the pan, and I'll show you that in a moment. Alright, so here is our ground beef with 1 egg, and you're going to see here in a second that I decided that 1 egg is not enough. So I'm also going to show you that you need your black pepper, your parsley, your salt, your garlic powder, your breadcrumbs or saltine crackers, and your garlic here. Okay, and you can see here that I did mix that up and I've added the 2nd egg. So I will correct that in the description box below of the recipe ingredients that you actually want 2 eggs for this. There was our 1/2 cup of saltine crackers, and our garlic is already in there, I believe. And then there's our parsley. And our pepper, and I like a lot of pepper in mine. You can do that to taste. You can also use the fresh ground black pepper, that works too. And here goes the salt, and this is the hard part because for some reason this salt shaker barely likes to give you any salt at a time, so it looks like I'm adding a ton, but I'm really not. The Worcestershire and everything is plenty salty enough. Just a tiny bit of garlic powder because you've already got the tablespoon of minced garlic in there. So you could leave that out if you're not a huge fan of garlic, but I like to give it a couple of layers of flavor with that. And then I'm just going to mix this up here. And you can also use your hands. That is usually the best way to combine this, and take your rings off if you're going to do that. That's what I'm showing you. Okay, So let's flip back over here to these onions real quick before I use my hands and mix that up. And I'm just going to check on them, see how they're doing. You can see they've got a few caramelized bits, and there's also a little bit of, you can start to see the white going away in the onions where they're getting translucent. I'm just going to keep stirring these and letting those cook down. Alright, back over to our meat mixture. You can see that I have mixed this up, and now I'm going to score it into 4 sections to make 4 big patties. If you like smaller patties, you could definitely score that 8 times or 6 times, whatever you prefer. And then you're just going to roll them into balls. Okay, before we go and put them in the pan, because the onions aren't quite ready, we're going to use this 4-cup mixing cup. I'm trying to show you here that it is 4 cups. This is just a glass Pyrex dish. And then I've already put the 1 can of cream of mushroom soup in there. And the beef broth. And the 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. 1 packet of brown gravy mix. Sorry if you hear kid noises in the background here. That is real life at our house, guys. It's always noisy when I'm cooking or doing things. But you're going to see here that I'm just mixing this up. It's going to be a little lumpy. That's okay. Just mix, 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 mix. And try to just combine all the flavors. And I'm going to get those little bits off the side of the bowl. And keep stirring. You could also use a whisk here if you wanted to, but I'm just using my spoon because I don't want to dirty yet another utensil. So, once it looks like that, you are good to go. Oh, and you can see my mess there on the counter. That's also real life, y'all. That's what happens. Alright, so here we go. I'm just showing you the lumps that you're going to see. That's perfectly normal, and it will cook out in the pan. And back to our onions. You can see they are nice and crispy. We're going to let those cook down just another minute here, and then I will put those into a bowl and reserve them to add back to the sauce later. So I'm just kind of moving them around, seeing what everything looks like. Come here, little guy. Alright, let's put those in a bowl. Now, we have our empty pan. I did not wipe this out. I did not wash it. I am just using those 4 sections, rolling those into a ball of that mix. And there's your patty. I put a little indentation because it is going to puff up a little bit, and that helps it cook a little more evenly. I'm just going to repeat this with all 4 pieces, and you can see that it starts to kind of fall apart on you, and that's okay. That is okay. So, what you can't hear here, and I wish you could, is that sizzle. I kept it on medium-high here just to get that good sear. We are not aiming to cook these all the way through in this portion. They will finish cooking all the way through in the oven in the sauce. However, I do want to make sure that we get a good sear on them. Alright, so there's 3 in the pan. We're going to move on to the 4th one in the pan. And this is the one that wants to fall apart on me. You're going to see me go back and forth to my bowl trying to get this thing to come together. I think a lot of the egg white must have been left in this little section because it did not want to hold together. And that's normal, guys. You're going to kind of notice that this looks a little bit like meatloaf in my opinion. It does look like meatloaf. And you're going to see that it also, as it sears, kind of looks like a salmon patty sear. But it works, and they are delicious. Okay. So now all 4 have been cooking. You see I've got my sauce over here reserved on the side. And then I've also got the onions sitting over there in a separate bowl to add. I'm showing you here just kind of the complete dinner that I'm making. This is for Father's Day, so this is in no way a health conscious meal. This is all carbs pretty much. But I peeled and diced some potatoes, and I've got water going for those. I'm going to preheat my oven to 375. And there we go. So that's preheating. Check on my beans here. Try not to steam us up here with the beans. Alright, so they're just rolling. I know that looks like a tiny, tiny amount of beans, but was mainly for my toddler and my husband to eat. And then I've got my pan ready to go. I didn't spray this or anything. It's just a clean pan. You don't have to worry about spraying it. Usually they do just fine. So I'm going to squeeze these onions over here so that I have room to get my macaroni and cheese started. Now, I'm just using the boxed macaroni and cheese that you saw in the once a month grocery haul, and I will link that down below for you or in the iCard up here. But now I'm going to flip these because they have had a few minutes to sear. Ooh, look at that. That is exactly what you want. They are not burnt, but they are nicely seared. That took just a couple of minutes. Flip those all over and let the other side sear as well. All right, so we will just let those sear. And you can see kind of the fat coming out of the ground beef as well, giving it a nice coating. And you can see that sizzle there. And I'm just going to check those. Yep, looks like the other side did great as well. And I'm going to transfer those to my pan, or to whatever baking dish you want to use. Move those onions out of my way. All right, now let's get all 4 of these puppies into the pan. And you can see here that they were a little difficult to, or that last one wanted to fall apart. However, there's no issue here with them falling apart now that they are cooked. All right. So now you can see that I've got it on that baking dish so that it doesn't fall apart on me. You can see the crispy bits and the grease that is left. Showing you my sauce is still a little lumpy here. We are going to toss those onions back in the pan. All right. Kind of stir those up, heat them back up. The whole point of throwing all of this back into the pan and putting the sauce in the pan is that you want that nice, those nice warm patties to have a nice warm sauce, so that you're not putting warm patties, cold sauce back into the oven. It'll just take longer to cook through. And so it's just a lot quicker if you go ahead and heat up your gravy sauce mixture here. So I'm just going to pour that in on top of the onions. And we will mix this up. All right, and you're just going to stir. If you have a non-stick or a non-scratch spatula or whisk, you could use that here, but the goal is just a few minutes to let that cook. I'm going to turn that off and just let that bubble. There we go. So you can see that those lumps are starting to assimilate into the sauce itself. And so that's not a big deal. We'll let that sit there. You can see my potatoes have not quite come to a boil yet. Stir that up. I'm also going to go ahead and actually turn on the water for the macaroni and cheese and add some salt. Just enough so that the noodles don't stick together as they cook. And I also salted those potatoes in the water as well. You don't need a whole lot of sauce. Alright, and what you saw there was just me trying to put everything in the dishwasher there, or in the dish, or in the sink. Here's me stirring up the sauce before we add it to the pan. Alright, y'all, so this is cooked just a couple of minutes. You can see that it's nice and thick, and we are going to pour this into the pan on top of our patties here. And just be very careful, don't burn yourself. It is going to be heavy and hot. Pour that all in there. And you can see it's still kind of liquidy. It's not super thick, but it has come together nicely. There's still a few little lumps, but that'll cook out as well. All right, all of that is in the pan. Now what I want to do, and what you want to make sure that you do, is move the sauce around and make sure that all of the patties are coated. If it helps you to flip them over, you can do that too. But I like to just make sure that there's a good few pieces of onions on there. and plenty of sauce on each patty. That keeps it moist, that helps it cook through, and it gives you that good rich flavor from the gravy as well. All right, that's ready to go. Let's cover that up with some foil. I am going to measure that out the best that I can do here. It doesn't have to be a precise science. You're going to see here in a second that that piece kind of went over to the left a little too much, so I'm going to add a second piece there, because you do want to make sure that it is completely sealed and well covered. You want to keep all of that heat and all of that moisture in the pan while it bakes. So here's my second piece. I'm just going to cover that up. It doesn't have to look pretty. We're just going to patch it right up here. All right, now into the oven it goes. My oven is already preheated at 375, so you're going to see me just toss that in the oven there. All right, now onto the mashed potatoes. We are going to put about 3 tablespoons of butter, real butter, in the pan or in the bowl here that I'm going to mix them in. And I would say, ooh, watch me throw it on the counter too. I would say this is about 1/3 cup of milk. Guys, I don't measure. I never learned to cook by measuring with my Nana, so that's just how we go. So I'm showing you here how I test my potatoes, and you can see that they are starting to break apart a little, but not quite. And the beans are still cooking through. I'm going to leave that lid off now and let some of the liquid evaporate. Those are just pinto beans, by the way. I'm showing you our time slot here, and our macaroni and cheese is boiling, and I have already put together the crescent rolls. Again, y'all, with the carbs, but this is what my husband requested. So we've got about 12 minutes left on the timer, and so I'm just going to throw these crescent rolls in. Make sure that if you're making crescent rolls, obviously you look at the package directions and go from there, but mine said 375 for about 10 to 12 minutes, so that's what I'm going to do. And I am going to move this down to the bottom rack, the Salisbury steak pan, and put the crescent rolls on top. If you're interested, those silicone mats are from Sam's Club, but you can get them various places. You just don't have to use the aluminum foil. So here I have drained my potatoes and added them to the butter and milk mixture that I have sat on the counter. And then I'm just going to kind of mix this through just a little bit. And I'm going to use my electric hand mixer here and just whip these up together. This takes just a few minutes, and you can see that at the end there that I left a few lumps in mine. That's the way that we do like them, but we'll eat them super creamy as well. The reason that I say that I don't know exactly how much milk, this ended up being a perfect amount of milk, but you know, it just varies. I swear it varies each time that I make them how much milk I need. Sometimes I have to add more. The key here is start with a small amount. So start with that 1/3 or 1/4 cup, because you don't want to add too much milk, because you can't take that out. And then they're going to be soupy and runny, and that's nobody's favorite way to eat mashed potatoes, or at least no one I know. So you've got your mashed potatoes here, mixing, mixing, mixing. And I'm also just going to keep mixing these up until they hit the desired consistency that we want. All right, now I'm going to set that to the side and add my black pepper and salt. I keep my mashed potatoes very, very simple. This is just a blend of russet potatoes, red potatoes that I've peeled, chopped, boiled. Add a little bit of salt, pepper, milk, and butter. All right, and that is it. We'll mix those up, and that's dinner. All right, so we're checking on these. They've still got a few minutes to go on the crescent rolls, and so you can see here I've got about 8 minutes left. The beans are still going. The macaroni and cheese is about done, ready to mix. And now I have pulled this out of the oven after that timer went off. Here is this delicious, delicious Salisbury steak. Yum, yum. You can see it's all bubbly. It is very hot, so be careful when you pull that foil off and don't burn yourself. But here's what it looks like, guys. All 4 patties are cooked through, and we've got onions and sauce and deliciousness. One thing I wanted to add is that you can add chopped mushrooms to this as well. You just throw those in the second time that you put your onions back in the pan there. If you wanted to add that depth of flavor and everything. I just didn't happen to have any mushrooms, so I made it without. Sometimes if I have mushrooms on hand, I will add those as well. So I'm just showing you, they're nice and thick still, coated with flavor. And we are ready to plate this up. Alright guys, here's a look at our plates for dinner. You can see my husband's got some pinto beans, macaroni and cheese. This is the girls' plates of beans, green beans, watermelon, macaroni and cheese, green beans, and watermelon. And that is our dinner. Everything was delicious. I'm going to get them some silverware. Alright, be sure to check out in the description box below our recipe for this. It'll be there for you if you need it. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Have a wonderful day.